what would happen is an AE would walk in and the first thing they would ask is, what are the top 3 challenges that you have? You have a half hour and you're going to hear about my 3 challenges. I have no idea how you can help me. So you've basically burned your meeting with me when that should have been your homework. You should have come in knowing all of this and been able to say, I understand you have this problem. Here's how I can help you solve it. And AI is going to be almost like your assistant to go find the right assets for that moment.
You're listening to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience, a podcast dedicated to helping executives train their sales and marketing teams to optimize growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. Let's accelerate your growth in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. I'm your host, Corey, and today I'm joined by Craig LeGrande. He is the CEO and founder of Mainstay, a boutique marketing and sales solutions firm dedicated to helping tech companies quantify and communicate the business value of their solutions. And if you spend any time on their website, you'll quickly see that their logo list reads like a who's who of big tech companies. And before Mainstay, Craig held significant roles at large tech companies himself, the likes of IBM, Accenture, Cisco, and he's also the co-author of 2 current books, Ruthless Execution and Competing for Customers. And he has a new book coming out in January with Wiley that is called AI-Driven Value Management. Craig, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Corey.
Value management, value selling. I can already sense we've got a lot to talk about. To set the stage for our audience and help them understand your perspective and really what helped form that. Mainstay has obviously been around since 2001, but going back even before that, you had 2 decades of experience in big tech, learning from some of the leading executives in the industry. When you were working there, what initially attracted you to the idea of value management and really value-based sales and marketing?
Yeah, it really does go back to my first job. So my first job was with Anderson Consulting. It's now Accenture. I worked for a gentleman he'd just become partner in the Miami office. His name's Jorge Benitez. He ended up being the lead partner for North America 15 years later. But for us, he was our partner. They're a small team. And going back to that time, client server had just come out. Windows had just come out, believe it or not. And we were at the cutting edge of technology. Being an engineer, it was just really exciting. But he kept harping to us, the technology doesn't matter, guys. It's what are we going to do to provide value for the customer? And that really took hold. The 4 years I was there before I went to get my MBA, I started spending more time with the customers and learning about what their problems were and how we could solve it through technology. So I think that was the start of it. After Accenture, I went to Cisco. And so I was part of a group called the Internet Business Solutions Group. And that group was an overlay to sales. It was my first job outside of really consulting. And it was a value management team. You weren't called value management. There really wasn't value management as a discipline, but we were doing executive briefings. Our goal was to raise the relationship for the Cisco customer from the network engineer to the CEO. And so our team had to develop our own content, our own messaging, sit in executive briefings, talking to executives, seeing what would work, what wouldn't work, doing business cases with the sales teams. So that's really where I cut my teeth and really fell in love with it. We saw the progress that it made for Cisco and how it helped to build these relationships at the executive level. And that's really where my sort of interest in value management started.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially it sounds like you're coming in at a great time, a lot of exciting tech advancement. And when you have to do everything, it sounds like, right, from creating everything to going to the C-suite, doing the briefings, like it's a great way to get your feet wet and learn to love all aspects of the discipline. So thinking back on that, like, I think it's striking for me to hear that in a way when you're saying things like, okay, Windows is just coming out and we've got this focus from product to really solving business problems. And I'm thinking, we have the same problem today, don't we? We hear it all the time. And so in your opinion, what has changed since those early days and what has stayed the same?
I left Cisco with 2 gentlemen I worked with to create Mainstay 20 years ago. And the reason why we left was exactly what you said, Corey. It was boy, this can't just be a Cisco problem. This has to be something that other executives in high-tech companies are challenged with. So we left, and our first real major client was Oracle. So Oracle had just gotten into ERP, and ERP is the pinnacle product for something that needs value management. It's multi-million-dollar investment, multi-year investment, core to the business investment that CEOs and the board would make. And so Oracle saw the opportunity to go after SAP, but knew it needed to be able to provide KPIs and industry messaging, all the things that we had done for Cisco. Oracle recognized it needed and did a great job with some of our help to build that messaging to compete successfully against SAP. Those pockets of value management existed. SAP had their own team, but did the same thing back then. But it was very few and undisciplined, put it that way. Today, we serve a lot of the value management teams out there through our software and our consulting. It's more of a practice than it was back then, for sure. And just over the last 5 years, you'll hear the title of value engineer has been out there. Value management teams have become departments within sales or within organizations. And it's become more of a discipline, much more of a discipline than it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was just activities that we were doing to try to help go-to-market approaches for companies. Now it's its own practice. And that's really what led to us writing this book, because we think it's something that needs further promotion and further structure and frameworks to help people be successful.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I'm curious. When you say like it's developed a lot as a practice, but obviously you've got this book coming out that you put a lot of work and effort into it. So what do you think are the big challenges that you're trying to address in that book?
So the biggest challenge is scalability. A lot of these programs have proven their value, and think of these programs for big companies being departments that have 100, 200 people in them at their highest maturity. And other companies, mid-tier companies, may have 5, 10 people in a value management program. Scaling is really difficult. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is the people are hard to find, and they're often very costly, because you're not going to have a very junior person call on the CEO of Ford Motor Company or GM, right? You need someone who understands the industry, who's experienced, who has a good CV, to give them the credibility to stand in front of a CEO and have that conversation. Those resources are hard to find, and they're very costly. So that makes it hard to scale these programs. And if you look at what success for most value management programs are today, it's at the top tier of customers, the most strategic customers, the highest valued customers. But the opportunity for value management is to scale that down to the rest of the sales organization and out to the rest of the customers. And so there are tools like our platform and other platforms that are out there specifically engineered for value management programs that can help to bring that IP, that ability to do a business case and sell on value to the salespeople. But that only gets you so far, right? And what we think the next technology that's really going to drive or reduce the friction in scaling is AI.
I want to dive into that point a little bit when you said that it only gets you so far, because one of the things that I have seen within just the past 6 months, even over the past year, is salespeople have the ability to synthesize a lot of information with AI, right? It can even, you train it right, you feed it a methodology, you do all these things. It can even tell you maybe the questions, all the questions I need to ask about Mainstay. I'm going to have a meeting with you. However, to your point, maybe this is my first AE role, and you actually pick up the phone. We actually start having that conversation. Am I going to know how to respond, right? Do I have that expertise? Do I have that CV credibility and that ice to walk into the C-suite and then continue that conversation? So I guess how can AI help us there, or is something else needed to take us a little bit further?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that are going to help that conversation. So the first thing is when we talk about value management, it's true today that value management is typically housed in sales, right? And it's focused on the things I talked about for that top tier of customers and trying to scale down to the other salespeople. In the book, what we try to talk about is thinking more broadly about value management, because what we want the sales executives, the leadership of the companies to understand is that value conversation has already probably started way before the AE gets a call or gets the opportunity to talk to that CEO or executive. It's happening on the marketing side and the pre-sales side. It's happening maybe with other folks within the company, maybe the sales engineer, maybe a VP of sales who saw the CEO or the CFO at a conference. And it's the ability to understand where that customer is in that journey so that you can have the right conversation with that customer. So what we talk about a lot in the book is a single voice. How do we create a company that has a value single voice to the customer? Consistent, quantitative, understands, like you said, the company's issues so that you can have a very detailed and prescriptive conversation with that person versus what we've heard. So I'll give you an example. I was talking with a CIO just last week, and I said, what is it that drove you crazy when you were a CIO? And she said, Craig, what would happen is an AE would walk in, they'd be excited to see me because I might see that vendor once a year or whatever. And the first thing they would ask is, what are the top 3 challenges that you have? And she was telling me, boy, you have a half hour and you're going to hear about my 3 challenges and you're going to, I have no idea how you can help me. So you've basically burned your meeting with me when that should have been your homework. You should have come in knowing all of this and been able to say, I understand you have this problem. Here's how I can help you solve it. And that's what we want AIVM to be, right? That intelligence so that when you walk in to the business buyer, the executive buyer, that conversation is very prescriptive.
And that's an important distinction. There's a big difference between maybe asking, what are your 3 challenges, having no idea, and saying, hey, from my understanding, here are the couple of challenges I think you're facing. Do you agree? Do you want to validate, help me validate and expand my understanding? Huge difference.
That's a combination of a few things. And you mentioned some of it. You need to understand their industry. You need to understand that company's place and competitiveness in the industry, their situation. So it could be that they have an outstanding sales team, but they don't have good sales content. It could be that they've got a great product, but they're not good at marketing. You need to understand that particular company's position in the marketplace, where their strengths and weaknesses are, and then associate how your solutions can address some of those areas that you could be most impactful and be able to not only to talk to them about how, but to what degree, and then quantify it and produce evidence that you've been able to deliver there. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the book is big companies. Think of like IBM and Microsoft and Cisco. They'll have thousands of data points or assets that a salesperson theoretically could go and use to bring into that one meeting to help convince that business buyer of the efficacy of their solution. But to find the right assets out of that mass of assets that are out there is very difficult. And AI is going to be almost like your assistant to go find the right assets for that moment.
It's a shocking problem. We partner with Aberdeen, and we've got a research study that's going to come out later this month. And one of the big data points that struck me was we got like 17% of a seller's time is just hunting through content, trying to find what they need to have the right conversation at the right time. So as that conversation naturally evolves, right, as we go in, we talk to the CSO, CIO, and we get confirmation on the problems, we get confirmation on the solution. Now we're looking to quantify our efforts and actually like, how do we convey that? How is AI going to help us beyond just servicing that right piece of content?
So I think there's 2 pieces that we could recommend in the book. So one is for value management. This is the importance of thinking beyond just sales as a point in time and success being getting the deal. Really what we want value management to be is that life cycle view so that once you're done with the deal, right, and you've convinced the buyer that you're going to achieve these level of benefits, someone needs to be responsible for reporting on whether or not you've achieved those benefits. And it's not just to make that customer happy and ensure you're delivering on that value promise, but it's also because that's an important asset that can get recycled into the next sale. Those are benchmarks. Those benchmarks are critical for the next sale and the next sale, and they become more and more robust and believable as you gain statistical significance, right? So think of that as a big piece of not only closing the first deal, but getting more deals later. If we can, as a value management team, have a structure and a framework so that we know once the deal is done, someone's going to go back in and collect those benchmarks, turn that into a customer success story, have those benchmarks be categorized by industry or by solution, so that sales can then pick that up and use that for the next deal, and value engineers can use it for the next business case. That's where we think the value of an end-to-end value management solution will come.
Got it. That's another important point, because I think sometimes people make the mistake of, and we all do it, right? We get so excited about a product we've built, or we've gone to work for this company because of the products, because of their reputation. And then we just throw a huge number in front of a customer, 5,000% ROI, and then just let that hang there. But why should they believe us, right? Why should they trust us? Can you dive into that approach a little bit more of how you build that trust incrementally with these big clients?
So it starts at the marketing side, and it gets to your point. Like, there's too many examples of the 5,000% ROI. So think of it from the lens of the buyer, right? So they may go to a conference and hear the 5,000% ROI, and they'll say to one of the folks on their team, hey, go explore this. This looks like it might be interesting. It's 5,000% ROI. So then that goes to a salesperson at that vendor, and the salesperson tries to convince the buyer that there is a 5,000% ROI. At some point in that journey, someone's going to go and say, is it really 5,000%, or is a lot of the savings soft savings or not achievable savings? And you lose a lot of trust and momentum with that buyer if you go out too early and too high with those expectations. So what we talk about a lot in the book is this idea of value intelligence. So value intelligence, think of it as like the overlay across marketing, sales, and customer success that builds that communication set that says there are solid benchmarks. And we call this whole practice like the structure of value tree. Value drivers, you have benchmarks for each value driver, and those can be by industry, by solution. If you have one group that's responsible for that IP, that value intelligence, and you apply it at marketing, at sales, and at customer success, you're going to have that consistent, unified voice for every conversation that you have with that customer. And that's going to accelerate sales, and that's going to build that trust so that you can then sell the next product. You can cross-sell, upsell, and you could be viewed more as a strategic partner versus just a one-product wonder.
I really like the point about the strategic partnership versus the one-time sale. And I agree. You've got to be aligned across the revenue engine for that to happen. I mean, that's something that we've seen as well. Sometimes companies will go in or they adopt sales methodology, and it's great for sales. But then they look back at the marketing messaging and they just become more dissatisfied with it because it's still bits, bytes, features, all that. But when you have it and you carry that customer focus, that value and ROI focus from the marketing, that first touch point, all the way through sales and customer success, it really does set you up for continued business.
Yeah. The other end of that, if you think about, this is common with most companies that we work with. Once an account manager wins the deal, their natural sort of progression is to go get the next deal. It's not to nurture that deal through to completion, meaning they're not going to take the business case and do a value realization against the business case. That's often a common hiccup for most companies is even though they've sold the deal, especially for SaaS companies, a year later, 2 years later, that customer is going to ask, did we realize the benefits of the business case? And there's often a lost motion in there. The value engineering teams typically aren't focused on that area, but if they could come back in and do a relook and an assessment to say, did we hit those targets? It goes a long way to continuing to build that trust with that customer.
Say you've got threats, coercion, gifts. You've got head of marketing, head of sales in the same room, right? They both want to do this. What are some practical tips that you would give them if you have like 5 minutes to sit down, they want to implement in their company?
First of all, it's great that you have both of them agreeing to do it at the same time. That's a huge plus for the CEO because typically what we'll find is there's one or the other. And what we talk about in the book and what we talk to our clients about is it doesn't matter where you start. The most important thing is to get started. And especially with folks that believe in value management and value selling and that practice, because there is a lot of work to it and it needs an owner. It really does need an owner. So when you have a case like a chief revenue officer who owns marketing and sales together, that's even better because you've got an easier start. You've got less friction, like you talked about before. Often there's a disconnect between marketing and sales. If they're under a CRO, typically that disconnect is not as strong because the chief revenue officer is tying them together and building a value management practice that looks at those two functions gives you a head start because now you can think about the front end of that customer lifecycle as a unified process from awareness all the way to the deal being closed. And so that gives that value management team a little bit more authority and ownership to help that messaging start all the way up on the website, all the way through to the business case and tie that together. What happens in practice a lot for us, Corey, is for big companies, it may start in one or the other. And that group then has to convince the other group to take their message, right? And that's where there's that friction.
Yeah, it definitely helps if you have a strong leader and a CRO. It's probably ideal. I was talking with a CRO of a health tech company the other day, and he made an intriguing point that I never heard before. He says when he goes to a new company, his first hire is sales enablement. He's got one sales enablement person he's brought with him through, I think, 2 or 3 companies. So where does sales enablement fit into the equation?
Sales enablement's really important. It's great that a leader brings a sales enablement person with them because it's not a natural motion for a lot of salespeople, even experienced salespeople. And it's for more experienced salespeople. Salespeople often can be like their own little CEOs in a way, right? They've got their territory, they've got their accounts, they do things their own way. Sales enablement helps to bind all the salespeople together to do best practices and understand what tools, assets, processes they have to improve on the way that they go to market and leverage all the assets in the company. Sales enablement is super important for value management because without sales enablement, all of the processes, the tools, the practices don't have a methodology to scale. I'll give you an example. A lot of the value engineers we work with are really good with customers. They're really good with building value models. They're really good with helping to close a deal by doing a business case. They're not good at taking what they do and scaling it to others. That's not their core competence. They're not that good at operations because they often run solo to do a lot of this work. And so sales enablement gives you that operational component that's essential for the success of scaling these programs.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. As much as we want our top salespeople to be all things, right? It's not fair, right? It's not fair to ask them to be ops, to traders and coaches on top of everything else, yeah. So definitely get that perspective. I'm tempted to shift gears a little bit because I was on your website today and this is something that I'm seeing more and more companies talk about and shift to. The idea, we've got SaaS in the traditional sense, but now a lot of people are starting to flip that on its head, right? And say that no, not software as a service, but service as a software in a way. Can you kind of explain how you're working through that and what you see the big advantages of that approach?
Yeah, it's a big part of our business. So for our value management platform called Advisor, again, it's helping, think of it, Corey, as a platform to automate and facilitate business casing for salespeople. So you take the IP from the value engineering team, turn it into an online application. And then what that does for the salesperson is it reduces the effort to collect the data because it helps to structure the data collection. It provides all of the charts that you need to show the results to the customer. You don't need to build the algorithms. It does all the math for you, right? And then it even puts out the executive ready PowerPoint presentation. So you've got the presentation ready to go. So you can spend more time as a salesperson with the customer, less time on Excel or PowerPoint building out that business case. That's the value of the platform. So for the platform, obviously you as a user can go in and do your business case as a sales user yourself. But the reason why we call our platform service as a software or service flip it, right? Instead of software as a service as a software, is because a lot of the work that we do with our clients, the value engineers that are building the tools, is much more than just helping them facilitate the Excel model into the platform as a business case. We do a lot of the change management and adoption work. Those guys, like I was saying, they're very good at building models. They're not the best as trainers and educators. So we have a whole group that helps them to launch those tools effectively. In other cases, we may work for a VP of sales and they may not have a value engineering team. We'll go out and we'll help them build the models so that they can then have the business case tool ready for their salespeople. And even in certain cases with one of our clients, Cisco, we do business cases for Cisco. So in a lot of cases, they don't have enough value engineering resources to go out and do the work. We'll do the business case with the account team. So for us, we look at our company as being service as a software. The platform is at the heart of our company. But outside of that, all of the services that we provide facilitate the success of our customer.
Seems like we've come full circle to where we started the conversation, right? Of like back in the day, you're thinking maybe it should be about solving the problems, not about the tech. And I think it's gotten better. It's gotten better, but there's still some big companies out there. I'm not going to name any names, right? But one starts with an S and ends with a force. They'll sell you the platform, and then they got a great network. To their credit, they really do. A fantastic network of solution experts, right? They'll sell you the consulting on the side of it too, right? But it still feels a little backwards at some points, right? All the configuration, all the work, and you're not operating from your business problems to a solution, operating from the tech backwards in some cases.
It's still true with a lot of companies. A lot of companies are product first, but compared to 20 years ago, a lot more chief revenue officers, sales executives understand the power of value selling. It's our job to help them to operationalize it, scale it. And in a lot of cases, like even on the marketing, because we'll do a lot of case studies, customer success videos. Our point in doing that, I mean, you could hire an ad agency to go do some of that work. But our point is, if you're going to spend the time with one of your top customers to talk about your solution, let's make sure that we get the most out of that by having them be able to talk about the quantification of value they've seen from your solution. Even in just simple assets like a customer success video, we want to make sure that value lens is fully adopted, right? And that still is not the case across industries, and even in high tech.
Couldn't agree more. But like you said, it's getting better, and that's encouraging, right?
And it's fun. I mean, we love what we do, right? We've got a great team that does it. We've got, like you said, we've got really good customers. So we'll just keep doing what we do. And hopefully this book will help to build more awareness to value management.
So, as a lot of our listeners, different stages in their careers, some might be going through something where they're thinking, oh man, this was a big misstep. But maybe they're going to look back on that in 3-5 years' time and say, no, this actually put me on the path to where I wanted to be. So, Craig, in your experience, what's an event at the time you're thinking, oh no, is this maybe a mistake? But looking back, it was really crucial for your growth.
I'll tell you one thing, it probably dates me a little bit, but back in Accenture, when I was doing software development, you take a lot of pride in the products you build. And so, especially being young and thinking what we were doing was changing the world, you think, I'll build it and they will come. So we would build these applications. Pepsi was one of our clients, and we built this really cool application. And from all of our team, the development team, we thought, wow, this is just going to be an instant success. It's so much better than the papers that they were using before. No, it fell over like a lead balloon. And the partner at the time was like, this is not going well. And we had a change management team, and we always like, this is ridiculous that they're getting paid for what they do. But human change is a real thing. And we learned our lesson early that you can't just build it and they will come. It really has to do with the messaging. And on the value management side, we talk a lot about what's the impact to the company. But for launching the solution, at the time when you launch it to the users, like the Salesforce users that are using Salesforce, you have to think about them personally. Why in the world am I adopting this solution? How is this going to improve me? Forget the company. How is this going to make my life better? This is going to make me better at my job. So we have a change management practice in our company because of the lessons I had learned 10, 15 years ago about the need for human change, the complexities of human change.
That's a timely lesson now for us, right? Especially with all of the AI tech that's being rolled out. Like it or not, we're here for it. And it's going to be a huge change management initiative for anyone.
Huge change management. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to be very scary for a lot of people.
Okay, this brings us to our close and our final two questions that we ask everyone. You're a CEO. That makes you a target for a lot of salespeople out there. What's the best way to earn time on your calendar?
I think it goes back to what we talked earlier. If you can bring value to our company, that's how you'll get a meeting with me or the other CEO. And you have to have enough insight into what we do to be very specific in how and in what way you're going to drive value. Value can be lots of things. It could be productivity for our team. It could be reducing costs of our operations. It could be opening up new channels for our business or opportunities for our business. So it doesn't have to be anything transformational, but it has to be very specific. So again, for getting access to the CEO, it may be a couple steps to get there, But if I hear from one of the folks on my team that I should meet with Corey, because Corey really has an opportunity that I think is going to bring value to our company, when I hear that from the folks that I work with, already you're in good stead because they've pre-qualified you on the value that you can bring to the company. And you've almost got an advocate within my company helping me to make that decision versus you just coming in cold turkey and trying to get a meeting and introduce yourself. So I think so it's some homework. Like it's better to be prepared and have that homework done before you see the CEO than just by chance get an opportunity to talk to me live.
Excellent advice. And final question, if you had to give one piece of advice to other revenue executives out there, what would it be and why?
I think AI-driven value management is going to be transformational. That doesn't mean you need to be an AI expert tomorrow, but really what it means is for sales leaders, you need to get your value management house in order, meaning you need to understand what your long-term goals are for value management. It can just be within sales. It doesn't have to be across the customer lifecycle, but you need to set a strategy and then set targets. AI will be a facilitator of scaling that. AI is not going to do value management for you, but it's going to help you to scale that practice. And our belief is that value management 3 years, 5 years from now will be table stakes, right? And it's how much you've scaled value management that will make you more successful than others. We say in the book that there's a 8x revenue opportunity if you do value management right. 2x from lead generation, marketing, 2x from deal closing, and 2x from customer success, reduced churn. That opportunity is there, but it takes some strategy and some formulation around how you're going to achieve that. AI will get you there, but you don't have to have the AI strategy first. You need a value management strategy first.
I love it. You have to start with the people, the expertise, the strategic development, and then you scale it. As tempted as we are to throw tech at it first and figure the rest out later, sometimes that's not the best approach.
That's exactly right, Corey.
Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. It's been fun.
And if people want to learn more about you, obviously you got the new book coming out from Wiley in January, but where can they go to connect with you and learn more?
Well, you can go to our website. It's mainstaycompany.com, or you can go on Amazon and look me up. I've got an author's page and the book's already up on there. It's not going to come out till January 15th, but you can pre-order it. And those are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of me, or LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn.
Hey, you heard it. Go pre-order the book. And Craig, thanks again. We appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, Corey.
You've been listening to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.